Ever stood in an empty room and felt you weren't alone? Psychic investigator Andy Matthews has.
Whatever is here wants to be known, it wants to be recognised.
For 10 years, he's been chasing the spirits of the dead. And he's not the only one.
I think he wants us to know that he's here.
Absolutely, I believe that.
Marion Goodfellow is one of the UK's leading mediums.
I was born on Halloween, just before midnight, and I am the seventh daughter of a seventh daughter.
Something's down there.
The Northern Ireland Paranormal Society are all about the science of ghost hunting.
If you have a message to pass on, please do so now.
The kind of results we're looking for is hard evidence.
Together, using clairvoyance, historical data and an arsenal of high-tech equipment, they're investigating Northern Ireland's most haunted places.
There's something banging around somewhere.
Somebody has to.
They believe. The question is, do you? Psychic investigator Andy Matthews has come to Woburn House in County Down. A training college run by the Northern Ireland Prison Service, this Georgian mansion has had an interesting, and some would say, checkered past. A former borstal and before that, a summer residence for the descendants of its wealthy 19th century founder, George Gilmore Dunbar.
Wow. So that's Woburn House.
But Woburn has a more sinister reputation too. The house is said to be haunted by a killer. There are many stories told about the Woburn ghost, and Bob Pugh, who's worked here for over 30 years, has heard them all. He even has one of his own.
Back in the borstal days, we used to use this as a night guard lookout point, because we could see across the front of the building in both directions. The borstal boys were in the dormitories down below here. I came up one night, set myself down on the chair, put my feet up on the coffee table, and just at that instant the place went icy cold. And it was a really warm summer's night. It was the middle of summer.
There were no windows open?
No windows were open. The place was really warm prior to that. Went icy cold. I felt shivery, so I went to get up, and I felt as though someone had put their arms around me and grabbed me from behind, and I couldn't move. So I eventually got my feet down off the coffee table, and I went to get up, and again I was completely being held, just held in one position. And I thought, now the other fellows are downstairs. If I shout, at least one of them will hear me downstairs. And at that moment it was as if a hand went over my mouth.
No.
And I couldn't move, I couldn't open my mouth to shout. And I began to wrestle around. I was looking over my shoulder and was saying to the other, I thought it was one of the other fellows had come up and was messing around. And I said to him, like, for goodness sakes, let go, you know. And I looked around and there was nobody there.
It was that strong, you actually
felt? It was that strong, I actually felt that I couldn't move. So eventually I managed to wrestle around, got down onto my knees on the floor and jumped up. And of course there was nobody there and the place just warmed up again. But I know for a fact that there was something. And I honestly felt it was quite frightening at the time.
So it has got the power and energy, whatever it is
There
here,
appears to be, yes.
to be able to manifest and break through and grab hold of people and move things.
The ghost of Woburn is known as the Butler, and Bob's not the only one here at the Prison Officer Training College to have run foul of him.
It was my very first night on night guard, night duty here. This door opened.
So it was shut?
I had closed it.
You had closed it?
Yeah.
But you actually came in here, shut the door, and then it was like somebody just opened it. And the thing is, with this door, it's on a very heavy spring there.
As I came to the door to see who had opened it, I was met by what I would call a barrier of steam. This steam was freezing cold, very cold. So I hastily got out of that room and made my way back to the office. And my colleague was there as I walked through the door, and I said to him, "What are you at? What's the game here? What are you doing?" And he immediately said, "Oh, you've been visited by the butler."
The butler?
The butler.
The story as I heard it was that one of the butlers back in the days of the private residence is reputed to have got one of the maids pregnant. And the story is that he was supposed to have killed her, taken her body onto this headland, threw it into the sea, and come back and gone into the building, into the very room that I have as an office now, and hanged himself in that room.
He actually hanged himself in
He's
your
supposed to
office?
have hanged himself in that room, that's right. Now, the thing is that this headland here, where he's reputed to have thrown her into the sea, if you look at an Ordnance Survey map, you'll find that that is known as Berkeley Rocks.
Why is it called Berkeley Rock?
Berkeley was his name, and so this became Berkeley Rocks.
That's where he supposedly dumped her
This is
body.
where he supposedly taken her, thrown her body into the sea, come back, gone into the building, and hanged himself in the top room of the tower, which is now my office.
You can't help but notice or sense the ghosts that are here, because there's so much kind of energy in this building. I feel that whatever is here isn't standoffish. It wants to be known, it wants to be recognised, it wants to be acknowledged.
Using an array of electronics, the paranormal team will handle the technical side of this investigation. Today, they'll focus on the tower room where Bob had his brush with the supernatural.
Is there anybody here with us? If there is, please, can you leave your first name and your surname?
To initiate contact, and more crucially, invite a response, they'll scan an audio spectrum beyond the range of normal hearing.
What we're basically doing was we're running an experiment which is called frequency sweep. It's very similar to sort of pink noise or a white noise experiment, but the difference being we're not using a combination of tones simultaneously, we're using one tone which then increases or ascends over time, in this case over a time period of 2 minutes.
If you can you leave us your first name and surname?
It's going from infrasound, which is roughly about 20 hertz, right up to ultrasound, which is roughly around about 20,000 hertz, which is just both ends outside the human sort of hearing level.
If you have a message to pass on, please do so now.
What we're thinking is, if there is a spirit supposedly coming through, and I mean, I'm sort of remain very sceptical about this, but it's something we have to try. If the spirits are trying to communicate with us, surely it might be easier if they're trying to work with one tone rather than working with a series of tones at the same time.
Are you happy?
Just so you know, for your reference, there was activity on 3,000 hertz on the climb up and 3,000 hertz on the descent back down.
That's interesting, Mark.
Right. You can definitely hear something where that is. A very low bass tone. And again, I don't have any idea what it is or what the significance is, but I know that it's not a straight line like Julia's speech or like the crew moving around. It's dot, 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 dot.
The final member of the team, Marion Goodfellow, has arrived to join the search. A professional medium, she's said to have made her first contact with the spirit world at the age of 3. If there's a presence here at Woburn, she'll find it.
Sometimes I see spirit, and I see them like I see ordinary people, three-dimensionally. They could be actually physical to my eye. Other times I perceive them.
Oddly, it's in front of the house, not inside, that Marion senses a voice from the past.
Picking her up. Picking up a young woman.
What?
I'm picking up a young woman, 23, 24 years old. And she's telling me that she's in the well.
The well?
The well. She's in the well. So...
Where would the well be?
I haven't got a clue. Well, this young girl came to me. It was a complete surprise to me. At first, I had to get her to calm down. I couldn't understand her language. Then she told me that she was in the well. I asked where the well was, because she sounded as if she was coming from underneath the water. She told me that the well was in the front room. Not